Hello and welcome to another Tech Distractions video. Today we're looking at a budget combo by Intel from around 1999. First up is a CPU, the Celeron 400A. Based on the 250nm Mendocino architecture, not to be confused with the one AMD released 24 years later, it featured a full-speed on-die L2 cache that gave it a nice performance bump over the previous generation. 1999 was an interesting time for PC hardware in the market. There were a lot of choices to build or upgrade your rig. Intel had a 1-2 punch going with the new Celeron and Pentium 3 using the Socket 370 platform. There was also the Pentium 2 and older generation Celeron using the previous Slot 1 platform. Competition was strong. Socket 7 and Super Socket 7 were still hanging on, providing excellent performance for those on tight budgets. AMD was pushing the limits with its K62 and Cyrix had some super cheap options. Onto the motherboard. I've chosen another budget option here, the GA6LM7A from Gigabyte. It's got an ISA slot, a few PCI slots, and an AGP slot. It is based on the Intel 440LX chipset, which is an older one, targeted at budget offerings like this motherboard. It wasn't great for overclocking, and budget boards like this one only supported the Celeron CPU. Finally, we've got some integrated audio, and it's one of my favourites, the ESS Solo-1. It has excellent MS-DOS compatibility and a good FM synth. For graphics, we've got another budget offering here from Intel, and this time it's the 740, or Express 3D. When it was first released, there was a lot of hype from Intel about it being some sort of revolution for gaming, using fancy new AGP interface. But in reality, it was a bit of a letdown, with many enthusiasts sticking to 3DFX, Matrox, or even the new kid on the block, NVIDIA. When it was released in early 1998, over here in Australia, the 740 was found for around about 195 Australian dollars, significantly more than the bottom tier S3 Verge and SIS, but cheaper than a lot of the other options. While it sold reasonably, within a few months it started to fall behind the mid-range pack. Intel dropped the price a few times, first at the end of 1998 down to about 129 AUD. As you can see with this seller, there's a big choice in the sub 200 bracket now, with even 3DFX dropping the Voodoo 1 price. By mid-1999 it had dropped down to the bottom of the barrel, seen here for about 69 Australian dollars and facing stiff competition from a new wave of 2D 3D combo cards, including the 3DFX Banshee. Towards the end of 1999, I remember picking one up for around 50 Australian dollars for my Slot 1 base Celeron 300A and being pretty happy with the bang for buck. And this is where I think it fits nicely into this build. Celeron 400A, 740 sitting on a lower end LX board. Let's see how it goes in 3D games under Windows 98.
Taken the lead.
Checking out the benchmark results, incoming at 480p 16-bit gave us an average of 38.8 frames per second. GL Quake gave us 48 frames a second. Quake 3 on the fastest or 384p setting gave us 44 frames a second, and Expendable gave us 25 frames per second at 480p. Not amazing stats, but definitely playable for the most part. Now let's have a look at some games that I didn't record benchmarks on. booting into MS-DOS now, and we give a few old classics a go to test out that ESS Solo sound. I'll also put some DOS bench results at the end. To do some baseline benchmarks in DOS, I use a DOS bench pack created by Phil's Computer Lab. This rig is right at the high end of what you'd need to play DOS games, and we can see that with the results. With 3D Bench we get 246 frames a second, Chris's 3D we get 101 frames a second, PC Player 48.8, Doom 92.6, and Quake with the default res 72, and Quake with the 480p res at 36 frames per second. These are all really good scores for a DOS rig. So there we have it, a nice little budget combo from 1999. The 740 didn't have a long future left in it as a discrete GPU, but most of its tech found its way into Intel's integrated graphics solutions and it did what it needed to do. As for the Celeron and Socket 370, they would continue to go on to bigger and better things, pushing up nice bit increases and performance boosts over the next few years. Okay, well that's it for this video. I hope you found it interesting, and I look forward to catching you in the next one. Bye for now.